If you were born around the same time I was, there's a good chance you grew up watching one of Cartoon Network's greatest cartoons, Ben 10. The show about a 10-year-old boy who finds a watch from a crashed meteor that lets him turn into different aliens. In the beginning, Ben only had access to 10 different forms, each with their own powers and uses. And that got me thinking, what if the roster of my favorite video game, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, became Ben's new aliens? Why am I thinking that? I don't know, just randomly popped into my head. Since Ben can scan new aliens into the Omnitrix, let's just pretend that the Smash Bros. Roster is now full of aliens instead of video game characters. In this video, we'll go over each of the OG 10's powers and see who in the Smash roster can match them, and build a brand new Omnitrix lineup. In the end, we'll even compare if the Smash version of the Omnitrix is better than the original version. And if you go on to enjoy this video, then be sure to leave a like and scan that subscribe button into your Omnitrix. I'm Majin Sprite, and now let's start with one of the most obvious roster swaps that you might already be thinking of. This is Accelerate, XLR8. In the show, this alien serves as Ben's speedster. When the situation calls for a quick solution, Accelerate is the way to go. According to the Ben 10 wiki, which I will be using as a reference along with other wikis for this whole video, Accelerate's abilities include moving so fast that time seems to stop, the ability to manipulate friction, resistance to strong winds, and the potential to become even faster with age. Even without his incredible running speed, Accelerate is capable of thinking, acting, and reacting at superhuman speed. Or should I say super alien speed? Now for his weaknesses. Magnets and charged pulses can throw him off his balance, electricity slows him down, and like most speedsters, running on ice isn't exactly his strong suit. So who in Smash should be his Sonic? We all know it's Sonic. His abilities are almost 100% identical to Accelerate, and in a lot of cases, his abilities are stated to be even greater. While the Ben 10 wiki states that Accelerate can hit speeds over 500 miles per hour, and in the hands of Ben 10,000 was able to travel the globe in seconds, the Sonic the Hedgehog wiki states that Sonic can reach the speed of light, which is over 670 million miles per hour. I know this stat most likely doesn't apply to every version of Sonic, but I want to believe that it does. Sonic's biggest downsides are that he's a terrible swimmer and he can't stop on a dime like Accelerate can, but overall, Sonic isn't just a replacement, he's an upgrade for the Omnitrix. Speaking of an upgrade, let's talk about Upgrade. In the show, Upgrade is Ben's alien for anything tech related. Upgrade's main ability is merging with technology. Once he's attached, he can not only control the device, but also upgrade it beyond its normal capabilities. His body is made of a liquid metallic substance that lets him reshape into different forms, extend himself, and even repair damage if his nanotech isn't completely destroyed. That doesn't mean he's without his weaknesses. Upgrade's control over some technology can be disruptive with brute force or when merging with an intelligent machine against its will. Additionally, strong electromagnetic pulses, acid, and intense heat can disrupt him. He also can't possess living organisms, so he's limited to machinery and gadgets. So who in Smash could take his place? I think it's gotta be Kirby, considering his trademark ability, inhaling enemies and copying their powers. Just like Upgrade adapts and enhances machines, Kirby adapts by taking on traits of whoever he copies. He's endlessly versatile, able to transform his moveset depending on the situation, and even without copying, he could reshape his body in ways that are surprisingly similar to Upgrade, like stretching and floating. But here's the thing, Kirby isn't a perfect one-to-one replacement. He can't merge with machines or supercharged technology like Upgrade can. Instead, his role as a copycat character makes him the closest spiritual match in the Smash roster. Next, let's tackle Heatblast. In the show, Heatblast is the very first alien Ben unlocks, and he quickly becomes one of the most iconic. Heatblast has the ability to generate and project intense fire, absorb heat from outside sources, and even use flames to propel himself through the air like a makeshift rocket. His entire body is made of living magma, which makes him extremely resistant to heat and fire attacks. On top of that, he can manipulate flames into different shapes, like fireballs or streams of fire, making him one of Ben's most versatile combat picks. Now for this alien's weaknesses, they should be pretty obvious. Water and other flame-resistant materials can weaken him, and if his fire is smothered or cut off from oxygen, he loses his main source of attack. Out of everyone in the Smash roster, I think the most obvious candidates to replace this alien are Charizard or Bowser. Charizard lines up really well since he can breathe fire and fly, but in Smash, he's tethered to the Pokemon trainer, which in a way makes me not want to choose him. That's why I'm going to go ahead and pick Bowser. Not only does Bowser breathe powerful streams of fire, but his sheer durability and strength make him feel a little closer to Heatblast in terms terms of raw power. Bowser does come with a funny weakness though. In most Mario games, he's famously defeated by falling into lava, but at the same time, he's also been shown to be resistant to lava in plenty of other cases. So while he's not a perfect one-to-one, I think Bowser's firepower and resilience makes him the best Heatblast replacement for the Omnitrix. Now on to Wildmutt. In the show, Wildmutt is Ben's feral alien. He doesn't have eyes, but like all cool blind characters in fiction, he makes up for it with his enhanced senses, like smell, hearing, and agility, making him perfect for close combat or tracking enemies. Wildmutt can leap incredible distances, run on all fours at high speed, and even use the quills on his back defensively. His weaknesses are pretty straightforward though. Since he's blind, if his sense of smell or hearing is impaired, he's at a huge disadvantage. So who replaces Wildmutt in Smash? My pick is Duck Hunt. Now this one's a little tricky because Duck Hunt isn't a single creature, it's a dog and duck working as a team. And we can't separate the duck from the hunt because that would just feel wrong. So how would the Omnitrix even handle this? Well, there's actually previous instances like this. Ben has aliens like Ditto and Echo who can duplicate themselves or split into multiple bodies, each one controlled by the same consciousness. That means it's not unreasonable to assume that the Omnitrix would just treat Duck Hunt as a single species, or like a natural 2-in-1 alien with a shared mind, kind of like Ben and a clone of his consciousness working together. And since the Omnitrix pulls DNA at a species peak, this version of Duck Hunt Ben would get wouldn't just be the Smash Fighter. It'd most likely be the best possible Hound-Duck hybrid. Everything I just said is speculation by me, and I am open to being corrected. From there, the comparison works surprisingly well. Duck Hunt Dog's sense-driven behavior lines up with Wildmutt's, and the duck adds aerial mobility that Wildmutt doesn't have. Wildmutt would still be the more powerful alien in a straight fight, but when it comes to recon, Duck Hunt could actually outclass him. With a Hound's superior tracking skills on the ground and a Mallard's eyes in the skies above, I think this replacement isn't too bad. Now let's get into Ghostfreak. In the show, Ghostfreak is one of Ben's more unsettling aliens. He's a phantom-like being who can turn invisible, possess living creatures, and manipulate darkness. His body can become intangible, making him almost impossible to hit in close combat. However, it does take conscious thought to activate. He can also extend tentacle-like appendages from under his cloak. But Ghostfreak also comes with a big downside. His DNA is linked to a villain named Sascar, which means the Omnitrix form carries some of his consciousness. That makes him dangerous for Ben to use too often. Additionally, Ghostfreak, if caught off guard while tangible, can be harmed by electricity, and the alien also has a notable weakness to intense light. So who in Smash could replace him? I think the best choice is Dark Samus. Dark Samus is a being created from Metroid Prime fusing with Samus's Phazon suit. She's basically a parasitic lifeform who can spread corruption, manipulate energy, and phase in and out of physical form. Her eerie floating movement and reliance on dark energy make her feel right at home as a Ghostfreak stand-in. Both characters share that intangible otherworld quality, and they even share the same creepy, distorted visual design that makes them stand out from the rest of their rosters. Of course, Ghostfreak's possession abilities don't have a direct parallel in Dark Samus, but at least Dark Samus won't be dangerous to use. Overall, I think she captures the same vibe of a dark ghost-like monster, so while she's not a perfect match due to basically just missing one huge ability, Dark Samus feels like the best Omnitrix replacement for Ghostfreak. And speaking of a Metroid replacement, let's get into our next alien, Stinkfly, who I think lines up with Ridley. In the show, Stinkfly is Ben's insectoid alien. Stinkfly is equipped with 4 wings that let him fly at high speeds and with great maneuverability. He can fire streams of slime or nauseating gases from his eye stalks and tail, making him both versatile and unpredictable in combat. His slim, bug-like body also allows him to squeeze through tight spaces and cling to surfaces. For his weaknesses, his wings are fragile and can be disabled if they're damaged. Without them, he's forced to crawl on the ground, which makes him slower and more vulnerable. He's also not as strong physically as some of Ben's other aliens, so brute force can overwhelm him. Like I said before, Ridley is going to be my stand-in for Stinkfly, as I don't think anybody else in Smash can match the uniqueness of this alien. Ridley is a draconic alien with incredible aerial mobility, razor-sharp claws, and a long tail he uses to both whip and pierce foes. While he doesn't shoot slime like Stinkfly, he breathes plasma and fire, giving him ranged options that serve a similar role. The comparison isn't perfect. Ridley's raw power and brutality are leagues beyond Stinkfly's, who leans more into agility and trickery. If Ben scanned Ridley into the Omnitrix, he'd basically be trading in his bug alien for a space dragon, which feels like another upgrade for the watch. Next up, we've got Gray Matter. In the show, Gray Matter is Ben's brains. He may only be 5 inches tall, but he has superhuman intelligence, problem-solving skills, and an incredible knack for understanding and manipulating technology. With his genius-level IQ, he can reprogram machines, hack alien systems, and invent solutions in the middle of a battle that no other alien can. His small size also makes him pretty hard to hit, and he can sneak into places bigger aliens can't. His weaknesses are pretty obvious though. He's physically frail, easy to capture, and completely reliant on brains over brawn. Without the right tools or environment, he's not too useful. So who replaces Gray Matter in Smash? To be honest, this one was tough. There isn't really a character in Smash with the same genius IQ or technological mastery. Instead, I had to go off of size, and that's why I picked Olimar. He's a tiny space explorer who commands an army of Pikmin to do his fighting for him. Now, to make this comparison a little more fair, I want to say Ben's version of Olimar could either pluck Pikmin anywhere from the ground or spawn in with one of each kind, almost like a hive mind. But you could consider me giving him an ability that is usually reliant on his environment cheating, so you can choose to take it or leave it, because without the Pikmin, Olimar would most likely be useless to Ben. So compared to Gray Matter, who's dominant in intelligence, Olimar feels like a downgrade. He matches the small stature and has some utility if we bend the rules, but to be honest, Olimar just isn't on Gray Matter's level. Now let's move on to Ben's aquatic alien, Ripjaws. Ripjaws has the ability to breathe underwater, swim at incredible speeds, and use his powerful jaw to bite through metal. His physiology is designed for deep sea with fins, gills, and bioluminescence to help him survive in dark ocean environments. But Ripjaws comes with one of the biggest weaknesses in the Omnitrix lineup. He's practically useless on land. Without access to water, he risks suffocating, which is to be expected from a guy that looks like this, and he's the definition of a situational alien. I think out of the Smash roster, the obvious picks for replacing him are Greninja and Squirtle. But just like with Charizard earlier, I'm going to go ahead and rule out Squirtle because he's tethered to the Pokemon trainer. That leaves Greninja, and he's a perfect fit. Greninja is a water/dark type Pokemon with the aspects of a ninja. He's fast both on land and in water, and uses water as a weapon, shaping it into shurikens, blades, and projectiles. While he doesn't have the same crushing bite as Ripjaws, Greninja makes up for it with speed and versatility. The comparison works in a few ways. Both are aquatic stealthy fighters who excel in aquatic environments, but where Ripjaws struggles the moment he's out of water, Greninja is still incredibly capable on land. That actually makes Greninja a more reliable pick for Ben, since he wouldn't have to worry about running out of time before suffocating. So while Ripjaws is deadly in water, Greninja is deadly everywhere, making him a major upgrade in practicality. Speaking of practicality, let's talk about Diamondhead. Diamondhead is one of Ben's strongest and most reliable aliens. This alien's entire body is made of nearly indestructible crystal. He can fire shards as projectiles, reshape his body into weapons like blades or shields, and even regenerate damage by reforming broken crystals. He's basically a tank that doubles as a weapons factory, but he's not unstoppable. Diamondhead's big weakness is that while his body crystal is tough, it's still vulnerable to things like sonic vibrations and enough brute force to shatter him. Once a crystal limb breaks, he has to take time to regenerate, which can leave him open in a fight. So who in Smash could replace him? I had to analyze the Smash roster for a hot minute since Diamondhead's abilities are pretty complex, and I found myself torn between two pretty solid choices. And those choices are Mega Man and Bayonetta, who I don't know much about, so I really had to read up on their wikis. For the Blue Bomber's abilities, he possesses superhuman strength, agility, stamina, and reflexes. His main weapon of attack though is his ambidextrous solar-powered arm cannon, which he can use to deal significant damage from a distance. Mega Man can also copy the special weapons of other robots, mainly the numbered ones, by touching them or inserting a chip into his systems depending on the media. And this is the part of the script where I realized I might have made the wrong choice with Upgrade. From what I've read, any weakness that Mega Man could have is purely a game mechanic. Dying to spikes in game seems to just be a way for the character to lose, as he's been shown to withstand lethal falls and land on his feet just fine without taking any damage. Additionally, in game, Mega Man can die to lava, but at the same time can take multiple hits from Heat Man, whose fire is hotter than the surface of the sun. For the abilities of the Umbra Witch, on the other hand, she has shape-shifting limbs and numerous magical powers like Beast Within that allows her to change into different animals, or Witch Time, which allows her to speed herself up and make enemies appear slower, or even Infernal Kiss, which allows her to control machines indirectly at will. Similar to Mega Man, Bayo doesn't go down easily. She's been shown to tank gunshots that could blast through metal, survived being crushed by a building, and even survived being on an exploding planet. Bayonetta's only weakness seems to be that she's overconfident? No, seriously, look, it says so right here on the wiki. Neither is perfect, but weighing strengths and weaknesses, Mega Man comes the closest. He's got plenty of projectile options that line up with Diamondhead's, and after reading what Bayonetta can do, I feel like putting her in the Omnitrix might be adding a nuke. To keep things fair, I don't want to add a character as insanely overpowered as Bayonetta. You know what I'm saying? Now, with our final alien, let's talk about the fan favorite and Ben favorite, Forearms. Forearms is an alien with massive physical strength, superhuman durability, and enhanced leaping ability. He can create shockwaves by clapping his hands, use his forearms for multi-directional attacks, and carry huge weights with ease. Whenever Ben needs raw power, Forearms is usually the first pick. Of course, he's not invincible. His size makes him an easy target, and he can sometimes rely too much on brute force over strategy. His durability is incredible, but enough energy blast or heavy firepower can still bring him down. Finally, Forearms can also be overpowered by an enemy whose strength is just greater than his. So who in Smash could replace him? My pick is Donkey Kong. DK has always been one of the strongest Nintendo characters, and in Donkey Kong Country Returns, he even punched the moon out of orbit. If there is ever any doubt about his strength, this single feat clears it up. He's got the raw power to stand in for Forearms, plus his gorilla physiology gives him agility that Forearms doesn't always have. Now, Bowser could also be argued here too, since he's incredibly strong as well, but DK's speed and agility make him feel closer to Forearms overall. Bowser is more of a tank, while DK can smash through enemies and still move quickly when needed, which makes his placement as Forearms replacement feel warranted. I also already put Bowser somewhere, so So while Forearms might still be the king of strength in the Omnitrix, Donkey Kong is the closest match Smash has to offer. Now that we've gone through all 10 replacements, the big question is the new Omnitrix better than the old Omnitrix? To figure this out, I'm going to score each replacement based on utility and not just raw power. Because the Omnitrix isn't about having the strongest aliens, it's about having the right alien for the right situation. So now let's quickly run through them. For Accelerate to Sonic, this is definitely an upgrade. They both serve the same purpose, but Sonic is just straight up faster. For Upgrade to Kirby, I'd say this is kind of neutral. They both kind of have the same adaptability, but Kirby just can't match the tech prowess that Upgrade has. For Heatblast to Bowser, I'm gonna say this one is also neutral. I'm sure that Bowser could take more physical hits than Heatblast and maybe even match him in his fire heat resistance, but I don't think Bowser with just having Fire Breath can match the versatility of Heatblast fire powers. For Wildmutt to Duck Hunt, I'm gonna say this one is also kind of neutral, since Duck Hunt has less power, but he might have more utility with the whole duck thing, being able to see more from the sky than Wildmutt could on the ground. I mean, Wildmutt can't even see, he just senses, you know? Now for Ghostfreak to Dark Samus, I'm gonna say this is an upgrade. If Ben had access to Dark Samus, he wouldn't have to worry about the big catch that comes with using Ghostfreak. You know, the whole shared consciousness with the big villain thing. Dark Samus and Ghostfreak almost even have the same abilities aside from possession, but I think with Ben's other aliens that you could maybe cover that, like with the Kirby replacement. I don't know. Now for Stinkfly to Ridley, I'm gonna say this is another upgrade. They're both really good flyers, and Ridley is just straight up more powerful than Stinkfly, and scarier. Now for Grey Matter to Olimar, I'm gonna say this is a downgrade. Grey Matter's biggest strength is his brains, and Olimar can't really match that. Even though Olimar is pretty small, there are other aliens that Ben could use that are pretty malleable and could, get through tight spaces. So Olimar might not be very much use to Ben. From Ripjaws to Greninja, this is another upgrade. They would both be aquatic aliens, but Greninja doesn't have the same weakness as Ripjaws as needing to have water to survive. Greninja would just be more deadly than Ripjaws since he can go in water and walk on land and still be as powerful in both. Now from Diamondhead to Mega Man, I'm gonna say this is kind of neutral. Both of these characters can kind of match each other in ranged attacks, and Mega Man is more durable than Diamondhead, but I do think that Diamondhead has more options when it comes to making weapons out of himself. Now finally, for Forearms to Donkey Kong, I'm gonna say this one might be an upgrade. As I stated earlier, in Donkey Kong Country Returns, Donkey Kong punched the moon out of orbit, which would take an immense amount of strength that I don't think Forearms can match. However, there are some people that like to argue that this feat shouldn't count as they think it's played as a gag, and these people even also state that the moon isn't even the size of the actual moon, it's just island size. Even if you want to set aside this feat, I still think that Donkey Kong has comparable strength to Forearms, so it's either neutral or an upgrade. So based on the quick comparisons I just made, it seems that the Smash Omnitrix is better than the OG Omnitrix. Sure, it might be missing a couple of things like ghostly possession or control of technology, but overall, Ben would have a fun time with this lineup. And with that, that's the end of the video. If you liked the video, then like the video, and if you liked me, then subscribe. I've been Majin Sprite, or you can just call me Sprite, but never Majin, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye now.